How are you, Mr. Tommy?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, thank you. How about you?
Me, I'm good. Where are you joining us from?
Currently in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Karuma Abe. Kindly share your introduction, where you're joining us from. Introduce yourself from in our comment section. Welcome to our section on how to design attention grabbing infographics for environmental education using AI. This is organized by African Climate Summit. To any one of you who doesn't know what is African Climate Stories, it's a community of storytellers based in Africa. All storytellers from all African countries. We tell the stories, African stories, because we believe African stories are told best by us. We represent ourselves best. That's why we're inviting you to join us in our training, learn with us, because this is a journey about us and for us, for our continent. And we are really proud to have you, Mr. Tom. Tommy, I keep calling you Tom instead of Tommy. Apologies for that. Yeah. Well, we on today's session we are aiming to we have four objectives. The first objective is to empower climate storytellers with the skills and knowledge in communicating more about climate change, because climate change is an issue really affecting African countries. Each and every country can tell their story in experience, either floods, they're having floods, drought, any
Yeah.
more effects. The effects of climate, they're everywhere, not only in Africa but worldwide. So how do we tell these stories to amplify our voices and be able to mitigate the effects of climate change? The other objective is to cultivate a diverse community of climate storytellers who are equipped to engage and inspire audiences across various platforms, because something like infographics, you can share it in all social media pages, in the mainstream media, everywhere, because there's power in using infographics and telling stories. The other objective is for faster collaboration, because like we said, we as African climate storytellers, we are from all African countries. Therefore, we are able to collaborate. I'm from Kenya, and you said you're joining us from Lagos.
Yeah.
This platform brings us together, and that's the beauty of joining us. Therefore, you can also share your interest in joining us on our comment section, because we're going to reach out and give you more information if you're listening to us. The other thing is we want to instill a sense of urgency, the responsibility in participants to drive positive change and action through their storytelling and community engagement. So those are basically our four objectives in our training. And before we get into our training, we'd love to know you, Mr. Tommy more. I love that you describe yourself. Who do you want the world to know you? Already you're out there and you're a big deal, because I've seen in your social media pages and everywhere, and your bio is really, you've done a lot. I don't want to introduce you because I believe you're the best to do that for yourself.
All right.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
so hi everyone. Thank you for having me today. Also thank you to African Climate Stories as well for this opportunity. So who is Tommy? So Tommy best describes himself as a human, an African, and a creator. Right. So being a creator, I'm able to express myself in different ways. And one of the ways I'm able to express myself is to use my skills to drive, social impact. So I have skills in design, skills in web development, skills in creative writing, and editorial and driving editorial efforts as well. Right. And I'm also the co-publisher of Susinsight. So Susinsight is a media platform that on a mission to advance sustainability in Africa. So basically, what we do is we report on the trends, and we also observe on the sustainability trends that are impacting the African, continent at large. Yeah. So that's basically me as for now. Yeah.
Okay, what are your hobbies? Maybe we would love to know. Other than what are
Okay.
your hobbies?
Yeah. So I have like a range of hobbies. So I like to listen to music. I like to, you know, browse the internet. I like to take pictures, see places, watch movies. Play video games as well. So yeah, these are some of my hobbies.
Okay, thank you for thank you for sharing that. Also, love to know. Since what inspired you to start Sun Insight?
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I will say it from the personal point of view and then the collective objective. So from a personal view, I've been looking for opportunities to use my skills to drive social value. So social value in terms of things that could impact my community, the environment, or Africa at large, and not just like for a business or an organization, right? And collectively, I and my partner we've been thinking about. So my partner is a sustainability researcher, and one of the things he mentioned was that in Africa there was lack of reliable information or resources where you could say, okay, I'm looking for to learn more about this particular issue, in a comprehensive manner, in a comprehensive report. So there was a lot of data gaps, informational gaps. I'm trying to think about, okay, how best could we approach this? And then the first thing that came to my mind was to use media. So media is very powerful. It could reach, different lengths and breadths of Africa, of the world in general. And, with our collaborative skills, we're able to think about how best to do that. So that was one of the ways we came about Susinsight, and the platform has evolved over time, and we have different, various forms of media content and formats that we produce as well.
Okay. Oh, congratulations. So many business start, but they never get to grow or to be. They just established and that's it.
Yeah.
We have seen at least you've really made a great impact, and yeah, congratulations. Thank you,
Thank you.
Michael, for joining us all the way from Lagos. Is it Lagos or Lagos since you're from Nigeria?
Yeah, it's Lagos.
Lagos. Oh my
Yes.
God. I'm embarrassing myself here.
That's
Saying Lagos. Okay. Therefore, in case you're joining us from anywhere in Africa or outside Africa, kindly introduce yourself and share where you're joining us and what you love to know or learn today in our training. And apologies, I didn't introduce myself. Maybe you're wondering who is this? I'm Karuma Evelyn, yeah, from Kenya, and I'm a ready presenter as well as an environmental activist here in Kenya. Yeah, that's my bio, I'll say.
okay.
I think we can now jump into the training. What do you think?
Yeah,
Are you
definitely.
ready? You
Yeah,
ready?
yeah,
So, one thing I love about infographics, I've seen the power of infographics even here in Kenya. Currently in Kenya, we are having protests
yeah,
on finance bill, and infographics have really been a powerful tool on Twitter and on our social media. That is
yeah,
what the Generation Z have been using to communicate what they are going to be doing
yeah,
and what next, informing our government, because the main thing is we want justice in our governance. We want accountability. We have
yeah,
been able to People have been able to represent the ideas and what we want on as graphics, and which is really good because it's easy to share that within social media. Therefore, how do we use make infographics using the power of AI? Therefore, we would love to hear more from you because you're the expert. You make them. We want to learn from you. And from now, I'm going to leave this platform for you to share all the knowledge.
all
I'll
right,
be in the background in the meantime, so you can go ahead and share your knowledge.
all right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
So I want to believe everyone can see my screen, right? All right. So thank you, everyone. So today we're looking at how to design or create attention, grabbing infographics for environmental education. Now, who is this for? So basically, I would say it's for the general public, but more specifically, for advocates, storytellers, who are looking for ways to, communicate their message in more creative ways, right? And I'm Tomi Abe, I'm the co-publisher of Susinsight, right? Now, more about myself. So my background, I have a background in information technology. I read computer science for my bachelor's degree, and after a few years, I went further to read creative technology in the UK, right? And I'm currently building Susinsight with my co-publisher. It's a media platform that provides comprehensive analysis, insightful reports, and compelling narratives on sustainable development in Africa. And so basically, what we do is like we report on the sustainability trends that are impacting the African continent at large. Right now, so what we'll be covering here is so we're trying to understand, why talk about effective sustainability communication, and why does it matter? Who do we need to reach? What messages resonate best? How do you use the tools to create compelling visual content? And then also share some insights from my experience, building and scaling Susinsight as well. And then I'll run you through some simple practicals about how you can also create some of this visual content, some infographics and some images as well, or illustrations. And then we'll have some. I'll be looking forward to answering some of your questions, after the session. So now, just an overview. Now, a recent report by the UNDP revealed that most African countries are struggling to meet SDG targets, and this is it. This is because some of like there's a need for more awareness or understanding about these SDG targets or the SDGs. Now, I want to believe that everyone has an understanding of what SDGs mean. So, like SDGs mean like the Sustainable Development Goals. About 17 of them, right? So you hear about clean water, good health and well-being, climate action, uh, responsive production and consumption, no poverty, no hunger. There are about 17 of these SDGs. So a better understanding about what those SDGs target means needs to be amplified, right? Now, one of the ways you can do this or communicate this better or drive this understanding and education is by using graphics and infographics or visual content in general. Now, what are infographics? They are like visual representations of information, data, and knowledge designed to present like complex information quickly and clearly, in a very simple manner, right? So I'll show you some examples as well. Now, designing effective infographics for environmental education is very essential, right? For raising awareness and promoting sustainable practices. Now, on a personal level, when I first heard the word sustainability or how I've perceived sustainability in general over the years, prior to recent, um, prior to like 2-3 years ago, I always saw it from like an institutional point of view. Like, okay, it probably doesn't really concern me. I mean, I can't really resonate with what is being said, until I came across some piece of information and it kind of piqued my interest, and that made me to learn more, to dive, to get better understanding about, okay, this actually relates to me. It impacts everything about living as a human being, right? So I think everyone needs to have that kind of an understanding, right? And visual information helps to drive that. So why does this matter? Now, effective communication is crucial in sustainability because it translates complex information and issues into understandable and actionable, information. So you heard about climate change, you heard about clean energy, we heard about all these terminologies. Visuals help to make sure that okay, whatever you're communicating can be easily understood, and even beyond just sustainability or environmental education, you've seen this happen in other industries. For example, when I first learned about cryptocurrency, I always assumed it was this ambiguous thing. But we have creators and designers that have helped to make this industry look a bit, compelling, a bit, attractive. So everyone probably now knows what crypto means. what blockchain means in some sense or form, right? So the same thing applies. So visuals help to translate this complex information in simple ways. And it also helps to bridge like data gaps between scientific data and public understanding, right? So if you're trying to explain, oh, something is happening in this place and is affecting a large demographics, you can translate that information in a very compelling manner, right? It also helps to motivate individuals and communities to adopt sustainable behaviors. So how you portray that information will determine the kind of impact or influence on on behaviors that you get or you get to see, right? So that's about the why. So we understand that it's very important because it helps to convert complex information into simple uh, messages. Now, who who are we trying to target? In general, I'll say everyone, but when you're trying to communicate, you have to be a bit specific, and this depends on number one, your brand, number two, your audience, who you're trying to target as well, right? Because if you don't know who you're trying to target, you won't know what to tell them, right? So beyond sustainability, these are like normal marketing techniques. So you need to know who your target audience is, what they like, how they consume content, and then how to reach them. So in general, I would say in terms of sustainability, there are like four major groups in general. So you have students or the younger demographics. You have researchers, people that are probably looking for quality information to propel their own research efforts as well. Or you have policymakers, so people in government, people in leadership positions, over a region, community, or country. And then you have businesses. So businesses are also very key in your target audience because sustainability affects every chain. Policymakers affect produce systems and policies that impact businesses, right? So businesses need to understand how they can adapt, to some of these policies, to some of these environmental concerns, to some of these climate concerns as well. And then you have the general public as well. So people like you and me that need to understand how sustainability affects all of us in general. Now, understanding your audience helps in crafting messages that are relevant and engaging to them. So a very good example is, for example, there was something that happened in Lagos in February. So the government introduced a new ban on styrofoam plastics because it was harming the environment. Now that has impacted a lot of businesses that were producing that form of products, right? So they'll probably see loss in their income, or some businesses were even taken out of the market, right? So now businesses need to understand how they could design their business operations in a more sustainable way so that they don't allow new policies to affect them directly. So these are some just basic examples. Now, what messages resonate best? So when you're discussing sustainability information, there's an art to it. So you need to know how to communicate it. You need to know what to say. So, for example, at Susinsight, we take these four groups of audiences into concern. So we try to design or produce content that could relate to these four groups. So we look at compelling messages, we look at comprehensive reports, we look at insightful reports as well. We try to do some creative storytelling. It could be poems, it could be creative writing, it could be comprehensive analysis as well. So your brand, your purpose will determine what you're putting out. So, and in all of these, you should focus on the urgency. So like how immediate, you want to highlight the immediate need of action. How relevant is this information? So you don't want to use outdated information. You don't want to use outdated data to report. You have to make sure that whatever you're reporting is as recent, at least between the last 5 years, because it takes a while for some of these new policies to influence a particular demographic. So 2-3 years down, you want to see what the results would be. So how relevant is it? You don't want to be using outdated information, right? So you have to make sure that you're concrete in your research efforts. And then what should be the positive outcome from your message? Because the wrong message could drive the wrong action. The right message could drive the right action. So you want to make sure that you're saying the right thing and you're saying it the best way. So you emphasize on the benefits of sustainable practices. You want to influence policies, you want to influence behaviors, you want to change mindsets about how people perceive a certain thing. Now, how? So how do you use design and AI tools to create compelling visual content? Now, the root of all this is in research. So I'll say research because if you don't know if you need to get like enough information about what you want to create, right? And research helps a lot with that. And even today, you know, before now we had we were left with Google for to get all the information that we could find online. Like you had to go to Google to search for this report. Had to go to Google to search for a particular form of data, or look for resource materials, right? But now with AI tools, you can easily get a lot of resource materials at a glance. So we leverage different AI tools to do some form of research. I'll show you some examples as well. Want to get now, if you don't know what to research on, it's very easy. Just look at any of the SDGs and then pick a subject area. So it could be, I want to look into hunger. What's happening? What's the current trend as regards poverty or hunger in this region? Which one is interesting? Which one is concerning? Which one is challenging? But to put it into more context, we're looking at environmental, education. So we're looking at climate change. We're looking at land degradation. We're looking at clean energy, green energy, recycling. So you want to understand the trends that is happening across different regions. Lagos, in Kenya, in South Africa, etc. So research helps a lot with that, and we have AI tools for that. I'll show you some examples in the practical session. Now, we use research to get a lot of data and information. So, and we also cross-check to make sure that that data is relevant. So you can't be using a data that is as far back as 2003, 2005, except maybe there hasn't been any new research efforts in that space. And then that means, okay, there's a gap that you need to fill yourself, or you could do some form of new research to get more relevant data and information. So a good example is at Susinsight, we released the report where we're looking into South Sudan, and we're to understand how. So we did a bit of analysis, and we discovered that climate change is influencing different things. So because of climate change, they don't experience rainfall in a while, and because of that, they're unable to produce farm products. It's affecting their livelihood. Because of that, it's causing tensions, political tensions, regional tensions as well. And we released a report titled "How Climate Change is Fueling Tensions in South Sudan." And in that report, we also discovered that they had experienced like a loss of tree cover. So tree cover are like the amount of trees that you get to see in an ecosystem. So they experienced like 23,000, I think if I'm not wrong, 23,000 like hectares of tree cover between 2001 and 2023. And that's a lot because it's affecting the environment. And because of that, 43.6, if I'm not wrong, billion or million emissions of CO2 were, sorry, 43.6 or 7 millions CO2 were emitted into the atmosphere. Now, you don't want to be in a space where that much CO2 is being emitted, right? So, how do you get to communicate that piece of information in a creative way that people can resonate and understand better? So, I'll show you that as well. And so, after research, you can now start looking at, okay, design. Now, design is very important. Everything around us is designed, right? What we see, what influences what we eat is designed, right? So, and there are so many design principles as well. So you want to make sure that your design is very simple. For myself, my personal design philosophy is like this: simpler is always better. I like simple things because it allows for easy assimilation of information. So you want to make sure that you're using simple colors, simple text. You want to make sure so that there are different design principles. There's white space. So white space is you have a lot of space around your content. It's not too clustered, so that people can easily scan through and have a very good understanding of what is being designed or what is being communicated. So that different design principles, layouts, typography, color theory, spacing and all that. Then your colors. So now when it comes to design, colors play a huge role. So you want to make sure that you have a good understanding of how to use colors. So for example, there are some colors that work well together, there are some that don't work well together. When you're communicating environmental information, you mostly see the color green. Yeah, because I mean it's cliche. Anything that has to do with sustainability, people just use green because industry wide or constant or as a constant, green is what we use. In tech, probably use blue, you know, as well. When it comes to love and relationships and dating, people use pink and all that or red. But in sustainability, people use green, right? Industry wide. But you could play around it because sometimes green can using excessive use of green could be too boring. So you want to pick people's interest. So you could slap some orange, some yellow, some white on it as well, so that there could be some form of balance, right? So there's green, different shades of green, light green, dark green, and all that. Or you could use orange, you could use yellow. So it just depends on how you get to use it as well. Then typography. So typography is also very important. So even at you're seeing my screen, I have my main message and then I have sub messages below it. So I want to capture your attention immediately and then I want to see other things below. So I don't put every text to have the same font size, right? So how you place content, how you arrange it, how you style it is also very important. In a piece of design, you should be using more than two font types, right? So I like to stick with one, but if I want to send a particular type of message in a creative way, I can use another font, right? So now there are different font types that you could use for different audiences. If you are doing a professional, like now, you will see most legal documents are used. They use so there are different font categories. So for things like this, you could use a simple font style. But for things like legal documents, they are usually they are fonts that are used for like professional documents. So you get to use those kind of fonts. But for you're trying to reach like a wide demographic, so you can use a simple font. You don't want to use creative fonts that could be used for things like birthday parties and all that, or or celebrations. You get to use a simple text, simple font size, and all that. Now, icons. So icons are all around us. You see icons on your laptops. You see icons on your phone. You see icons on your AC controller, your remote controller. They're all around us. Icons helps us to recognize things, helps us to they instruct us on what to do. So you know that when you see the plus sign or something, it means to increase the volume or increase the size. Or when you see the minus sign, it means to reduce the size or reduce the volume. When you see the recycle icon, it means okay, this probably has to do with sustainability. When you see the power icon, you know that this is for power on or to turn on something. When you see the sleep icon, the moon icon, it means that okay, this is to probably sleep that particular function or right. So icons are all around us. In your design, you should be able to use some of these icons because you may want to represent a particular information, but an icon could just collapse all that information into a simple piece, of graphic. And now, lastly, we have AI tools. So AI tools help a lot. I can't even mention the ways in which you can use AI tools. You can use so you could have an idea, an AI tool could help you refine that idea into something creative. You could have a piece of information, an AI tool can help you to break down that information into a simple bit. Could have uh, let's say you're trying to produce something in a more creative way, AI can help you to refine it, help you to reward it, and all that. So there are so many use cases. It has helped us a lot in how we get to think about uh, topic development, how we get to think about developing a compelling piece of work, how we get to think about the creative ideas that we see on some of our social media platforms as well. So I'll show you some examples. And now, insights from our experience at Susinsight. Now, there are about 3 or 4 things that are very particular to us. So when you're trying to communicate information, you need to know first what you're communicating. So what you're communicating, where is it happening? So if you say, okay, for example, now in a recent report we are developing, we noticed that Kenya is one of the countries that is adopting digital farming the most, right? So if you're saying, oh, Africa is adopting digital farming, you need to like specify where is that trend happening the most. So where is it happening? Who is this happening? Like how well is that happening? So like now we're talking numbers, metrics. How has this trend grown over time? Is it between months or between years? So this is where data driven storytelling comes into play. So you need to know where, you need to know what, you need to know the impact. What's the trend? What has the change been like over time? And then you need to also understand. So we're very particular about metrics, figures, numbers, um, and then we also take use of references. So you need to know, okay, if something is happening, who reported it. So we leverage trusted media platforms and news outlets to also get information and journalistic reports, right? Now, we've also so like a lot of things have changed at Susinsight over time. So we leverage different kinds of information to reach our different groups of audiences. So we have things that the younger demographic could resonate with. We have things that researchers could resonate with more. We have information that policymakers could resonate with, as well. So we try to make sure that we're trying to reach the different groups of our audiences. Now, infographics play a huge role in all of this. I'll show you an example very soon. But before I get to that, you need to understand that when you're so from the brand perspective, you need to have a constant use of colors. So at certain sites, we use like dark green, light green, and light orange. And sometimes we use white because white is everywhere. So and across our major platforms, you will see like this constant use of these colors in creative ways, right? And we use illustrations. So when you're doing media reporting, can't just lift up images from the internet because if you want to be a trusted media outlet, you want to show that okay, you have license to use that piece of information or piece of graphic or whatever, or you can easily create your own, right? So sometimes we use illustrations because people get to understand illustrations better. They could resonate with it. They could understand what's happening better, or illustrations in general just help to tell the story better, right? Or if you have access to images from Getty Images or wherever, yes, that's fine. You could also pay for that. And then we try to make sure that we have this consistent use of colors on all our communication materials. And then we leverage social media. So on social media, we have constant use of the, the same font style because we have a brand guide that we follow. The same fonts, the same use of colors. Our communication styles is also very important. So if you're trying to reach the older demographic, there's a way you communicate your message. Or if you're trying to reach the younger demographic, there's a way you communicate your message in a more narrative way, right? But we try to have a balance of this because we are pertaining to these four groups. So our computer style is mostly informational. Yeah. For other people, it could be narrative. Other people, it could be professional. You know. And now, so the practical aspect. So I'm going to be showing you a piece of information from Susinsight, right? So let me just share my screen.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. That was such a detailed, explanation. But there's a part that maybe you would explain better.
Okay.
And like things like
Like,
sustainability. Also, they are very difficult terms. Like for just normal audience, basically as much policymakers will understand, and
yeah,
anyone who is in the environmental field,
yeah,
something like maybe carbon
yes,
sequencing, these are things which are really hard for just
yeah,
an ordinary. Is there a way how you break down so that you can be able to present this information in a graphics, so that you can be able, that process of deciding what are the graphics to use, is there a process that you go through, or what do you do to make sure that you use
yeah,
the best graphics?
graphics. All
Yeah.
right. So it's two ways. So it could be done creatively, like in terms of a graphic, or it could be done via just plain text. So well, one of the things that we did recently was that on Source Insight we created a glossary page where some of the content that has all these large or sustainability words, people could go there and then see the description of each word. So things like carbon emissions, you get to see what it means. Things like deforestation, you get to see what it means. Now, it's from that understanding that you can now be able to, okay, know how best to represent this information. So, which is what I was going to, I'll be showing you very soon. Now, when I'm trying to think of an infographic, I like to think of I like to break things down. So if a piece of information has like four key elements, I try to like prioritize, okay, which of these key elements should be the main focus on this infographic, right? And
Okay.
then I work with that. So you don't necessarily need to show everything. You just need to find a main focus and then look for more creative ways to supplement the other information. So uh, I hope that helps as well.
Yeah, that's a bit more clear. Also, a quick one. Do you brainstorm with other people, or you just, a one person mind and you sit down and you decide? Do you
Yes,
brainstorm with other people? Do you do
yes,
discussions?
yes, yeah. So I and my partner will have like this brainstorming session where we think of, okay, so most of the infographics that you get to see on our platforms are usually based on the content that we've produced. So from every piece of reports, we use AI tools to adapt AI tools. Okay, we produce a report. Which of the information from our reports can we convert to a piece of infographic? And then it outlines like 10 of those. It outlines 10 information that we can use to create an infographic, right? And then between myself and my partner, we now look at those 10 piece of information, and then we think about, okay, this is what converting to an infographic. Oh, this is not in line with what we want to communicate. So yeah, so we get to decide what we want to produce from the reports that we've published previously. Yeah, and from there so everything mostly is done with AI. So from AI, we now look at, okay, we can like break down information. So like I asked it, okay, which of these can you like break down this information into four elements, and then it outlines the elements. So for example, I mentioned something about South Sudan trade cover loss. So it highlights the piece of information that I could take note of. So it mentions tree cover, it mentions CO2 loss, it mentions the environmental impact as well. And then I could work with that and go further in my infographic, which I'll be showing you right now.
Okay. That's well explained. You can proceed with the practical. I believe everyone did understand that.
All right. So
Eh, Yeah. Also,
uh,
for the
let
people
me.
joining, remember to share your comments as we continue and ask your questions as early as now so that we are able to ask them as we proceed. Okay, proceed.
All right. So let me open my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's
All right,
clear.
great. So so now the most basic AI tool that we use, everyone should be familiar with ChatGPT, right? So ChatGPT is like an it's a generative AI tool that is a language, is a learning language model. So you speak to it like you're talking to a human being. Now, how you speak to it determines the kind of response it will give you. Now, what some of the things I usually do is if a piece of information is complex and I myself I'm trying to understand it better, I ask it to explain. So I say, okay, this is like everything here is a piece of information that I have gathered and I want to like portray in a simple visual or graphic. So I say, okay, explain like I'm a 15-year-old, right? So it's get to explain it to me in a 15-year-old. So for example, now the original information was the loss of 138 hectares of tree cover in South Sudan from 2001 to 2023 resulted in the release of approximately 43.7 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, right? Now, this heightened environmental impact is rooted in factors like deforestation, land degradation, and increase in challenges faced by communities in the region. So I asked you to explain it to me like I'm a 15-year-old. So what he did was that he explained it to me. So it says between 2001 and 2023, South Sudan had lost about 138 hectares of trees. So that means they lost about 138 hectares of trees in between that space of time. Now, this is like losing a forest that is the size of 193,000 soccer fields. So you can imagine how wide and how much that is. Now, when these trees were cut down and burned, about 43.7 million metric tons of CO2 were released into the air. And you know what happens when the air is polluted? It affects the environment, it affects people as well. So this huge environmental impact is mainly because of deforestation, like cutting down trees, and land degradation, like the land is becoming less healthy and productive. Now, these problems make life harder for people living in South Sudan. So at the basic level, that's what that piece of information means. Now, how do you represent that visually? So I now ask it, okay, what are the key elements in this piece of information that it should list them? So it mentioned tree cover loss, right? With the information. So 138 hectares of trees lost in South Sudan from 2001 to 2023. It mentioned carbon dioxide and then the amount of CO2 that were released into the air. It mentioned the environmental impact as well. And then it mentioned challenges, article title, and whatever. So now I only need three things from this. I need only the tree cover loss information. I need only the CO2 emissions. I need only the environmental impact, right? Now I'm thinking creatively, how do I represent this? So as a creator, you have to start thinking, what can I use to represent tree cover loss? What can I use to represent CO2? And what can I use to represent environmental impact? Now, part of my design approach is I like to keep things minimal. So what is priority to me could be tree cover loss. What could be priority to somebody else could be CO2 emissions, right? So I'm now there to decide, okay, which of these do I want to be the main focus of the message? So when you're trying to represent these, there are so many tools that you can use. I use Figma sometimes, but I think most people are familiar with Canva. So Canva is very easy to use. It has a very steep learning curve. You know, you don't need to read too many tutorials to learn how to use it. So you can download the app on your phone. You can easily create stuff, you know, flyers and all that. So I'm going to be showing you quickly how to represent this kind of information with Canva. So I'm going to share my screen now. All right. So my screen will pop up shortly. All right, great. So now this is the end result basically. But let's not look at the end result. Let's look at how we can recreate this. So, like I said, you need to know your colors. So you have this in mind. Now, these colors are dependent on what you're trying to portray. So in sustainability, there are certain colors that are being used. So you can get to use green, you can use yellow, you could use white, you could use other shades of green, other shades of yellow. So it just depends on how you want to use them. So you don't want to use two dull colors together. You don't want to use two light colors together. So you could use a dull color and a light color and vice versa. Now, because I'm a creative, I like to start with a blank space, you know, mostly a white color or a lighter color. So here I'm using like a light yellow. Now, I'm thinking from that visual element, we had two things. We had tree cover loss, and then we had carbon dioxide. So for me, I could look. I have to do some sketches. So I could work with. I could say, okay, I want to prioritize communicating tree cover loss, or I want to prioritize communicating the amount of CO2 that were emitted. So I could do it both ways. I could choose one. It's left to me. So now, what can I use to represent trees? I mean, it's a simple tree icon. So I just go on Canva. So how I created this was I just created a simple blank page on Canva. So you just on Canva they have different templates. So there's A4 paper size, there's Instagram, there's a square paper size, there's different sizes. So you just select the one that you want to use. So here this is just a basic A4 paper size. And I change the color, there's this color setting there. So background color, you could select black, you could select green, you could select yellow, and all that. So I just clicked on yellow, and then now I want to think of a title. So the title of my infographic is sorry. I click on text. So the title of my infographic is, so I had a heading. So the title is Tree Cover Loss in South Sudan. Right. Now you don't want to make sure, you have to reduce the size of the font. I want everything to be on one single line. So I think this is enough. So I just keep that on top in the middle, right? So because my piece of my design is like, it looks portrait, so my design is going to flow from top to down, right? So because people either read from top to down, people read from left to right. So you have to think about how your audience consumes content. In the Arab region, they probably read from right to left. So you have to also think about that. So I'm doing it from top to down. So the title first, and then what next? So I have two pieces of information that I want to represent. So it's either I represent the tree cover loss, or I represent the CO2 emissions that were emitted. So I'm going to go for the tree cover loss because that's what I want to represent. That's what I want to communicate, right? So I now search for, now on Canva, it's very easy. You could easily just search for elements. So the different elements that you could find on Canva. Now you could search for trees. Let's type trees and then press enter. Now my approach to design is very simple. I like things that are minimal, things I can easily customize myself. So I try not to use like vector-based images or raster-based images in general. It's like I like to use flat designs, so icons, simple icons I can easily tweak or manipulate myself. So I'm looking for a piece of tree icon that is very simple. I could probably even write on top of it. So I can't really see anything here. So I'll probably just go to shapes. I can't see anything here as well. So I'm just browsing through, trying to see if I can find something that I could use. So if I click on see all, and then I scroll through, right? So I'm not really seeing anything that I could use here. Now let me go for, so if you find a simple tree, you go look for a shape, you won't see anything. Look for frames, you won't see anything. So now I'm not able to see. So if I go back to all, I'm able to see some of the things that I recently interacted with, right? So you can see like recently used, right? So you could see this tree. So I like to work with. So this depends on audience like preferences. So anyone could use different kind of graphics to represent what they want to communicate. So I like to use things like this because with this simple tree icon, I can easily manipulate it. So for example, I could change its color. I could change it to this. I could change it to this. Depending on what I want to color, what my brand color is as well. So let's leave it at black for now. Now, because I'm talking about tree cover loss, so this gets to be my main focus for the infographic. So I just try to adjust the height of the tree. Now, what am I trying to say with this tree? So I remember from ChatGPT, it said that 138 hectares of tree were lost in South Sudan between 2001 and 2023. So I just go back to my Canva and I go to the text feature and I type, or I can easily just duplicate this. So you can easily duplicate this. So just Control C, Control V. So you see duplicate, right? And then you type 138, right? 1,000 hectares. So now you don't necessarily need to put the entire text. You have to think of, so people consume catchy catchy like text, catchy messages resonate better. It captures people's attention. When something is too long, people don't read that, especially on things like graphics or piece of design materials. So 138 hectares lost. Now I'm thinking, how best should I put this? So I like to make use of spaces. So when I see spaces, I'm already thinking of how best to maximize that space. So I could probably put this in the middle of this, right? And then now, like I mentioned, your brand color. So trees are usually green. So I change this color to color green, right? And I, like I also mentioned before, you can't use two dull colors together. So I can easily use like white color for this text, or I could use the color of my background. Now I want the text to sit properly, so I just reduce the size. So let's leave it at 26. So this works well. It sits in the middle of the graphic. So you get to understand that, okay, 138 hectares of trees were lost. As simple as this is. Now I could play around this. So I could probably duplicate the tree and reduce the size just to add, just to fill up some of the spaces, that are in the background. I send this to the back because it's not like the main focus. So I go to layer, send to the back. Now I don't want it to overshadow the main tree. So there's this thing called opacity or transparency. So you can reduce how visible something is. So I just reduce this to like, let's say 40. Let's say 40. And I do the same thing for the other one. I put it to the back. So as simple as that. Now, like I said, when you're communicating an infographic, especially something you want to be, especially a simple infographic, you probably have a main focus and you have supplementary information. Okay, one you said 138 hectares were lost in South Sudan. When and where did this happen? So in our previous message, they said between 2001 and 2023. So how can I represent this range? And if you're familiar with visual communication, you know that you could use different things. You could probably use calendar, you could use date and month, you could use just the year, you could use arrows, there's so many things. Now, what comes to my mind first is, okay, I could probably show an arrow that points from 2001 to 2023. So as simple as that, I just duplicate this text, I change it to 2001. And I do the same thing, change it to, sorry.
Okay, hello, Mr. Tommy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd love to bring to your attention. We might be running out of time,
okay,
but
okay.
we still have some time. Probably you can rush this
All right, no
practical
problem.
a bit a little bit so that we have more time for questions.
Yeah, yeah. I'm,
Okay.
I'm, I'm almost done. This is just
Okay, no problem.
all right. And so I just bring in an arrow that points the the range. So 2001 to 2023. And then the last piece of information you want to include is the CO2 emissions. So you could just say, okay, between yeah. So you could just say, okay, this because of this, there was a loss of CO2 emissions, and this was the amount, right? Creatively below. So this is a very simple piece of infographic, and I think anyone that sees this understands what this message is about. Yeah, and that's how you get to create a simple infographic as well. So 138,000 hectares lost in between 2001 and 2023, and this was the overall environmental impact. Yeah. I could have showed you how to use AI tools to create other images, but because of time. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. It was quite, within a short period, and you were able to give us a lot of information
Yeah.
on how this actually, the good thing about infographics, people remember more
Yeah.
visual more than,
Yeah.
more than the words.
Yeah.
This is powerful. To all who are joining us, I hope you are learning a lot from Mr. Tommy. Kindly share your question, drop your questions right now, because he will love to answer more questions. Probably you can start with what is the disadvantage, because like Canva, there are already templates which are made, and you just made yours from scratch. What is the disadvantage of using those templates which are made?
So I mean, Canva could be used for anything. So it's not left to you to not think about what I want to use it for. So sometimes you have templates that align with what you already have in your mind, and you can easily just change some things. Or sometimes you could just want to do your own thing from scratch. So it's always good to, on your own time, try out, tweaking some of these templates, or try creating some of your own piece of graphic, by yourself. So I would say there's any disadvantage because I've played around with Canva. I've used Canva to create flyers, posters, and I would say it's one of the easiest tools that you can use, so to create any piece of graphic or even a piece of presentation. You just have to know how to use what template to use and how to adjust it to fit your own purpose.
Okay, okay. Also, there is a question: is it possible to have another short practical design session using another AI tool if there are no
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. How long can you take to do that?
Uh, I'll say lesser than this, at least 2 minutes max.
Two, mi-
Use.
two
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
Okay. Go for it. You have your 2 minutes.
All right, great. So thank you. And now, so what I showed before was how to create infographic. Now, what I'm going to show you is how you can create like custom illustrations or images that resonates with your message. So I'm going to introduce you to a tool called Recraft. It's termed. Let me share my screen let me share my browser so you get to see it. Uh, so Recraft is a new AI tool that launched recently, and it's one of my best because it allows me to create stuff easily. So you start the website is recraft.ai, so recraft.ai, and it's a graphic tool. Anyone can have access to it. It's for free, at least for now. You could sign up with your Gmail, and when you open Recraft, so like let me open a new page. So these are some of the things I've done in the past. So you click on Recraft and you just click on creating a new project. So it's loading. Now you're presented with the blank canvas, right? So you could just click on, oh, I want to create a raster image, right? And then it gives you at the basic level, it gives you a square, so you can easily adjust it or different sizes. So we like to use 16 by 9, right? So let's say I'm trying to communicate a piece of information. So whatever information it is. So let's say I want to create an image that could resonate with my message. So I am trying to say, okay, tree cover loss in South Sudan or environmental degradation, whatever it is. So I just click here on the image as well, and then I type environmental degradation, right? And then now the beauty about Raycraft is you can tailor your illustration to follow a particular style or image to follow a particular style. So you see this image here, so you just click on it. So you can either use illustrations, can use photorealism, or you can upload your own illustration style that you want it to follow. So these are some samples of illustrations that I've created in the past, and I usually create them in that form in that style. So you get to see like they maintain the same style of creativity, but it also has inbuilt styles that you could use. So I want to have like a more realistic feel. So I just click on hide flash, and then I press recraft, and then it starts generating itself. So you just give it about 2 minutes, and then it will produce your image. So that you can see environmental degradation. You can see that the cracks on the earth. So it kind of looks real, you know. So these are all the basic ways you could create a simple form of image to resonate with your message. Now I can the same message I can easily do this with an illustration, right? So I just duplicate it like so could duplicate like Ctrl C, Ctrl V, right? And then I click on illustration. So Recart has different illustration styles. So let's see, I click on green, this one here, and then I click Recart. So it's generating. So you could see it's showing illustrations, but now there's the thing about AI. Sometimes AI it's not perfect. Sometimes it may not give you your desired outcome, so you cannot get to like try it again with other styles. So I could change this to let's say something like color engraving, and I want to see what it will produce. So somebody asked what app is it? So the app is Recraft, Recraft. So you can see, yeah, it's trying to tell a story. You know, this industrial plant is emitting a lot of gas into the air. You know, it's trying to tell a story, and you can see how it's impacting the environment, right? So these are just some basic ways you could create illustrations and images that resonate with your message. Now, there are other deeper ways to go about this, but uh, that requires some form of practice. You know, how to portray the right message, how to create the right message that resonates with your how to create the right image that resonates with your message as well. So instead of doing something that is just basic, yeah. So I hope everyone gets to try this tool and learn how to use it on in their own time.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Actually, I love the recraft. It's the images that you made are more, captivating more than
Yeah.
the other one. But can you be able to use Canva to make the same thing?
So
Be
Canva has
someone with.
an yeah, Canva has an AI tool, but I haven't really just tried it myself. Yeah, so I
Okay.
haven't. Yeah, but I know they started incorporating AI into their tools. Yeah.
Okay. Which other tools can someone use other
Okay,
than these two that you've shared?
so yeah, there's a lot. So in terms of generative AI tools, like in terms of like trying to refine your idea, there's ChatGPT, there is Bing AI, which is very good for research. That's Copilot, Bing Copilot. Um, I don't know if I provide them here. I think Facebook also has its own AI tool. It's called Meta AI. So now
Yeah.
for the creative stuff, so there's also Google's Gemini. So Gemini is also good as well. Now for the creative stuff, I used to use a tool called Midjourney, but it's not free. So you have to pay about $10 every month for that. It's for the basic level. But and then I discovered
Okay.
Recraft. So these days I use more of Recraft because it's kind of free and I could create so many ideas without having to use any form of credits. So there's Recraft. There's also another tool called even some of the generative AI tools like Copilot, Bing, ChatGPT, they also allow you to create images as well, even Meta. So they allow you to create images in them. If you're not familiar with some of these tools, on ChatGPT you could easily create an image. On Meta you could easily create an image. Just ask it to create an image, and then it create an image for you, or create a piece of infographic for you. But then I don't really like the results of what they create, so that's why I like to design my own infographics myself. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Also, another question. You were really good at, I'll say you are tutoring, the training. Do you offer classes for anyone who love to join classes? Or
Uh,
how do you share information on that?
so at the moment, I haven't had any. I haven't thought of holding any class on this. I mean, it's what considering in the near future as well. But I like to write about my processes. So from time to time. So at certain sites, we usually have like an inside stories corner where we write about some of our processes on how we go about producing content. So we have a blog section for that. So once in a while, we usually like previously I wrote an article about how I use AI to drive the creative direction at Susinsight. So yeah, it's what I'm looking into from our website.
Okay. Also, share your social media pages where they can find you, where they can find information on some insight as we wrap up this.
All right, thank you. So, well, we use the same name everywhere on social media. So the Source Insights, SUS, and then Insights, INCIGHT on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well. And then we also have a newsletter that we publish very often. So on new updates, new events, new activities going on at Source Insights. So it's on Substack. Just search for Source Insights as well on Substack as well. Yeah.
Okay, it was a pleasure, being trained by you, hosting you, Mr. Tommy.
Thank you very much.
African Climate Story is happy to have you. We are humbled. Thank you for accepting our invite to train us. We are also learning. We are not all informed. Because of you, we are so right now I can say I am a graphic designer almost. I'll almost say I'm an expert
Yeah.
because the training was very informative. Thank you. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for joining us. I hope you have learned, and I have loved how interactive you are. You asked questions and you made comments. It was a pleasure hosting you. And if you would love to be part of African Climate Stories, please visit our social media pages on Instagram, on our website. Website is just African Climate Stories, LinkedIn, all social media pages. We are just African Climate Stories, and we will love you. You send your entry as a graphic designer, as a storyteller, as a photographer. You want your story covered, please share that on our email. It's shared from our website or on our Instagram or our socials. Thank you so much, Mr. Tommy. It
Thank you
was a
very much.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. Leave